They laughed at him, mocked his dreams, called him dumb, said he'd end up in jail or on the streets. Especially his teacher, the very one meant to uplift him, looked him dead in the eye and said, "You'll never be anything." But what they didn't know was that this same black boy years later would walk into that same school. Only now he wasn't the kid they once laughed at, he was a billionaire. This is the story of Jalen Brooks. And this is the karma no one saw coming. Jalen Brooks was just 10 years old when he realized the world wasn't built for kids like him. Born in the rough part of Newark, New Jersey, where the sidewalks cracked as hard as the dreams did, and gunshots were the background lullabies, Jalen lived with his mother and younger sister in a one-bedroom apartment above a broken-down liquor store. His mother, Miss Tasha, worked 2 jobs, nurse assistant by day, janitor by night. His dad? Nowhere to be found. But despite the struggle, Jalen was different. Quiet. Observant. Always sketching something in a little spiral notebook he carried everywhere. Designs of sneakers, flying cars, robot waiters. His mind was full of ideas. While other kids were clowning in class, Jalen was sketching inventions. He didn't say much, but his mind never stopped. But you know how it goes. In a school system where skin color can feel like a sentence, and dreams too big are treated like threats, Jalen wasn't celebrated, he was labeled disruptive, unmotivated, disrespectful. And nobody threw those labels harder than Ms. Karen Whitmore, his 5th grade teacher. Now Ms. Whitmore had been teaching for 20 years. Blonde hair, tight bun, cold smile. Always wore a turtleneck and pearls like she was auditioning for a role on some 1950s show. And Jalen? She saw him as a problem the moment he walked in. "Jalen, stop doodling and pay attention," she'd bark. "But I finished the assignment," he'd say, showing his paper. "And what is this? You think you're going to be some kind of artist? You'll be lucky if you finish high school." The other kids laughed, but Jalen didn't. That was the first time someone told him his dreams didn't matter. But it wouldn't be the last. The thing was, Jalen wasn't failing. He was bored. The school wasn't challenging him. Every test he took, he passed with ease. But Ms. Whitmore didn't like that. She didn't like a little black boy being smarter than she expected. So she started stacking the deck. Giving him detention for minor things. Calling his mom weekly. Even accused him of cheating on a test once. Then came the moment that would change everything. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. Ms. Whitmore stood at the front of the class, passing back graded math tests. Jalen's paper hit his desk. A big red C- scribbled across the top. He blinked. That couldn't be right. He knew he had every answer. "Excuse me, Ms. Whitmore," he said cautiously. "I think there's a mistake." "No mistake," she snapped. "Maybe if you spent more time listening instead of scribbling in that book of yours, you'd do better." The class giggled. Jalen's chest burned. He stood up slowly. "But I checked every answer 3 times. I know I got them right." Ms. Whitmore tilted her head, smiling like a snake. "Jalen, sit down. You're not special. You're not gifted. And you're certainly not going to grow up and be some kind of genius. Do you know what happens to boys like you?" She paused for effect. "Nothing. You end up another statistic. Locked up. Or worse." The classroom fell silent. Even the gigglers froze. Jalen's fists clenched. His little spiral notebook was shaking in his hands. "And if you don't like how I teach," she added with venom, "you can go tell the principal. But trust me, nobody's gonna believe you over me." That night, Jalen didn't eat. Didn't sleep. He stared at the cracked ceiling of their tiny apartment and whispered, "One day, they're gonna regret every word." Years passed. Middle school. High school. Jalen kept his head low and his grind high. He devoured books on engineering, design, and entrepreneurship. Miss Tasha scraped up money to get him a used laptop. Jalen taught himself how to code. He started a small online sneaker design page under the name JB Customs. By senior year, his Instagram had over 100,000 followers, and celebrities were demanding him to design custom shoes. But he never forgot Ms. Whitmore. Then came the big break. At just 19, Jalen pitched a tech meets fashion concept to a venture capital contest in New York. His idea? A sneaker with built-in health sensors, step tracking, posture correction, and even blood pressure monitoring. Nobody had seen anything like it. Investors laughed at first, until he showed them the prototype. It blew their minds. 1 year later, Stride Tech was born. Within 3 years, Stride Tech was valued at over $400 million. By the time Jalen turned 25, Forbes had him on the cover. The boy with the dream they tried to kill. He wore a dark green custom suit. No tie. Just confidence. But for Jalen, it wasn't about the money. It was about proving them wrong. Now here's where it gets wild. On a quiet morning in Newark, the school board was hosting a legacy brunch at the same elementary school where it all began. The auditorium had been renovated. Fresh paint. New seats. But some faces hadn't changed. Ms. Whitmore was there. Still teaching. Still wearing turtlenecks and pearls. She stood near the punch table, chatting with board members, bragging about her years of experience and impact on disadvantaged students. That's when the doors opened. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up outside. Everyone turned. Out stepped a man in a charcoal gray suit. Diamond cufflinks. Watch worth more than the principal's house. Jaws dropped. Whispers rippled. That's Jalen Brooks. Ms. Whitmore froze mid-sip. He walked in slow calm. The same little boy they tried to erase. Only now he owned the board they played on. Principal Rodriguez greeted him with a hug. Jalen. It's an honor. Jalen smiled warmly. Thanks for the invite. I thought it was time I paid a visit. Cameras flashed. Reporters gathered. Then the moment came. The MC took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we're proud to welcome today's keynote speaker. Newark's own. Tech mogul. Visionary. Billionaire. Jalen Brooks. Thunderous applause. Jalen stepped up to the mic, calm but powerful. He looked out over the crowd. Spotted Ms. Whitmore in the back. I was told I'd never be anything, he began. I was told I didn't belong. That I'd end up in jail. That my dreams were too big. Too loud. Black. Silence. But I'm standing here today to say, those words didn't break me. They built me. Everyone was on their feet. Except Ms. Whitmore, who looked like she'd seen a ghost. After the speech, people crowded him. Selfies. Autographs. Praise. Then he walked straight toward her. Ms. Whitmore, he said with a chilling calm. It's been a long time. She swallowed hard. Jalen. You've done well for yourself. He nodded. Thanks. But you told me I'd never be anything. Remember that? She fumbled. I was just trying to prepare you for reality. He stared her down. No, you were trying to limit me. But reality is what I built. And now, I own the building your classroom sits in. Her face drained of color. Oh, he added, pulling out a gold business card, and starting next semester, there's going to be some changes. He handed the card to the principal. We're launching a full scholarship program. For every black and brown student in this district who's ever been told they can't. He turned back to Ms. Whitmore, voice low. You inspired that. And just when you think that's the end. 1 week later, a leaked video hits the internet. Security footage from the school archive. Ms. Whitmore caught on tape, belittling students. Mocking kids. Even throwing out one student's art project and calling it ghetto garbage. The video goes viral. National attention. Protests at the school. Petition for her removal hits 250,000 signatures in 48 hours. The school board scrambles. Media trucks are outside the school. Every headline reads, "The billionaire who exposed his racist teacher." But just as she thinks it can't get any worse, she receives a certified letter. From Jalen Brooks Enterprises. Her name is on the envelope. And what's inside? Let's just say it's something that will change everything. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift black voices and expose hidden truths. The envelope trembled in her hands. Ms. Whitmore, the once untouchable veteran teacher of Everdale Elementary, now sat pale-faced behind her desk, the buzz of the classroom outside muffled by the deafening beat of her own heartbeat. Her fingers, once so steady while grading the futures of children she underestimated, now quivered. On the center of the thick ivory envelope, embossed in gold, read the words, Jalen Brooks Enterprises, Private and Confidential. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a sleek letterhead. And the first line? Dear Ms. Whitmore, this letter serves as formal notification. Her eyes widened. That following my company's acquisition of the Everdale School building through our community development arm, we will be implementing a full restructuring of school personnel, effective immediately. She gasped. Her name was listed under pending review for termination and investigation. But that wasn't the worst part. Stapled behind the letter was a copy of the leaked video footage. Her yelling at students, belittling their dreams, calling a young Latina girl's drawing worthless trash, and sneering at a shy black boy saying, "You'll end up flipping burgers if you don't stop acting ghetto." The very language that scarred children now threatened to end her career. But Ms. Whitmore wasn't just shocked, she was enraged. "No," she whispered to herself. "No, no, no. This can't be happening. I gave my life to this school. But karma doesn't care how long you've been sitting in your throne when your crown was built on broken spirits." She stormed into the principal's office. "I demand to speak to the board," she shouted. "This is slander. That video was taken out of context." Principal Rodriguez looked up, unbothered. He pointed calmly to the wall. There, mounted proudly, was a framed newspaper headline. "Billionaire Jalen Brooks gives $20 million to transform inner-city schools." Rodriguez smiled. "We have new leadership now. You might want to lawyer up." Meanwhile, just a few miles away in the heart of downtown Newark, Jalen Brooks sat in the penthouse conference room of the Brooks Legacy Foundation, dressed in a sharp all-black suit, gold cufflinks shaped like the initials JB. His assistant, Kennedy, a sharp-minded black woman with a Harvard Law degree and a no-nonsense energy, walked in. "She's read the letter," Kennedy said. "You want me to handle the press?" Jalen looked out the massive window at the city he came from, the same streets that once told him he'd never make it. He turned, calm as ever. "Let it sit with her. Sometimes silence screams the loudest." Kennedy smiled. "The new Student Innovation Center opens next week. Want me to add your name to the building?" He shook his head. "No. Name it after my mom." "Miss Tasha Learning Lab it is," she said, scribbling the note. Just then Jalen's phone buzzed. An incoming message. Unknown number. Subject, "You think you've won." Message, "You don't know who you're messing with." His smile faded. The message was from a blocked sender, but he knew who it was. Ms. Whitmore wasn't going down quietly. The very next morning the headlines shifted. Teacher accuses billionaire of targeted harassment. Former student seeks revenge on retired educator? Cancel culture or justice? The Jalen Brooks controversy. Jalen leaned back in his chair, scrolling through the articles. "She's playing the victim," Kennedy said. "Trying to flip the narrative." He nodded. "It's what bullies do when the spotlight turns on them." Across town, Ms. Whitmore had launched a civil suit, claiming defamation, emotional distress, and loss of reputation. She even hired a lawyer with ties to right-wing media. Her story was gaining traction in conservative circles. And the worst part? An old photo of Jalen in high school, wearing a hoodie and walking with friends, surfaced online, with the caption, "Was he really the innocent kid he claims to be?" It was clear. They were trying to dig up anything, to bury his name. But Jalen wasn't one to sit back. That afternoon he appeared on the Melanin Hour, a nationally syndicated podcast hosted by activist and journalist Tamika Ray. She leaned in. "So let's get to it, Jalen. They're saying you're waging a personal vendetta. That this is some billionaire power trip." He didn't blink. "I'm not canceling anyone," he said. "I'm correcting history. For every kid who was told they didn't matter. For every student whose confidence was crushed in classrooms designed to break them. This isn't revenge. This is redemption." The clip went viral. Millions of views overnight. Celebrities chimed in. Former students of Ms. Whitmore came forward. Dozens. Sharing stories of humiliation, discrimination, and bias. The school board, under pressure, suspended her pending investigation. But Jalen wasn't done. He announced the creation of the Never Be Anything Initiative, a nationwide fund for marginalized students pursuing STEM and entrepreneurship. And at the first scholarship award ceremony, he gave a speech that stopped the room. "I was told I'd never be anything," he said. "So I became everything they said I couldn't." Thunderous applause. But just as the celebration began, his phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. This one came with an attachment. He opened it. A photo of his mother, Miss Tasha, stepping out of her apartment building. Underneath it, a caption. "Tell your mother to be careful. Accidents happen." Jalen's heart dropped. His hands clenched the phone. The room around him buzzed with celebration, but in his mind, everything stopped. Kennedy saw his face. Jalen? What is it? He turned the phone to her. Her face darkened instantly. This is a threat, she said. We need to call security. The police. Everybody. But Jalen was already up, storming out. No, he said. We're not waiting. We're finding out who's behind this. Across the city, a dark figure sat in an expensive office lit only by the city lights. On their desk? A file labeled Jalen Brooks, confidential, filled with old photos, school records, and something far more dangerous. A sealed juvenile court file. One even Jalen didn't know existed. The figure leaned back, whispered into a burner phone. He wants to expose people? Let's see how he likes being exposed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Jalen's world is about to be turned upside down. Because the deeper he digs for justice, the darker the secrets he'll uncover. Starting with his own past. Jalen Brooks stood in the hallway of his luxury apartment, fists clenched, heart thudding like a war drum. The message still glowed on his phone screen. That photo of his mother, Miss Tasha, walking out of her apartment, followed by that ominous line, "Tell your mother to be careful. Accidents happen." This wasn't some harmless internet troll. This was a threat. Personal. Direct. Dangerous. Kennedy burst out of the office behind him, phone already to her ear. I've got our security detail tracking the source now. I'm also calling Miss Tasha. She needs to leave the apartment immediately. But Jalen was already moving. Have Jamal bring the car around. We're going to her. Now. Within minutes, the elevator doors opened into the underground garage. Jalen and Kennedy jumped into the back of his bulletproof Mercedes Maybach. His longtime driver and head of security, Jamal, glanced in the rearview mirror, saw the tension on Jalen's face, and didn't ask a single question. He just hit the gas. As they sped through the streets of Newark, the city Jalen once walked through with hand-me-down sneakers and dreams too big for his zip code, he thought back to all the moments that shaped him. Ms. Whitmore's words. The humiliation. The betrayal. But now, this was bigger than just revenge or redemption. Someone was playing dirty. Someone was trying to shut him down, hard. When they reached Miss Tasha's building, security was already stationed at the door. Kennedy had moved fast. She always did. Miss Tasha was standing by the lobby window, arms crossed, unimpressed. Y'all act like I'm some damsel in distress, she said as soon as Jalen stepped in. If anybody tries me, they gon' find out what old Newark girls are made of. Jalen managed a tense laugh. Ma, this ain't a game. Somebody's watching you. She raised her eyebrow. Somebody's always been watching me, Jalen. But you know what? I didn't raise you to run scared, and I'm not about to start now. Kennedy stepped forward. We're moving you into a secure condo until we figure this out. Please don't argue. Miss Tasha huffed but nodded. Fine. But I want lemon cake and my old quilt from the couch. Jalen kissed her forehead, grateful. But as they rode to the new location, his mind wasn't at ease. This was calculated. Too precise. Whoever was behind it had access, real access. This wasn't Ms. Whitmore acting alone. This felt deeper. Back at the Foundation headquarters, Kennedy had news. We traced the anonymous messages to a masked server routed through a private law firm, Grayson, Bell & Cross. Jalen narrowed his eyes. Never heard of them. Kennedy smirked darkly. That's the point. They're a boutique firm used by the rich and corrupt. No website. No social media. But guess who's on retainer there? She dropped a file on the table. Gregory Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore's older brother. Multimillionaire. Retired judge. Conservative donor. Looks like Big Brother doesn't like his little sister being exposed, Kennedy said. Jalen rubbed his jaw. They're using their power to flip the narrative, weaponize my past. She nodded. And it's working. Right-wing news outlets are already suggesting this is a billionaire smear campaign against traditional educators. One even hinted that you were the real bully growing up. Jalen shook his head in disbelief. I was a 10-year-old black kid trying to survive a hostile classroom. Now they're trying to paint me as some villain. Kennedy's eyes hardened. It gets worse. We pulled some court archives. Hidden. Still. But someone unsealed them. She opened her laptop and turned the screen to him. Jalen froze. A juvenile court record. His name. His file. A single charge from when he was 13, aggravated mischief. The charge was dropped. He'd never even known about it because it had been sealed immediately. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. "Apparently," Kennedy said, "Ms. Whitmore had him suspended over a fight in the hallway. Another teacher intervened and tried to de-escalate, but Whitmore filed an incident report. The school involved the cops and it got filed under your name. Her brother had friends in the system. Quietly cleaned it up." Jalen clenched his fists. "She tried to label me a criminal. Even then. And now they're trying to resurrect it to destroy you. Leak this, twist the facts, say you've always had a violent past." Jalen stood. "Then we go on the offensive." Kennedy raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning, we expose everything." He ordered his legal team to dig into every case Gregory Whitmore presided over. Every donation he made. Every teacher Ms. Whitmore mentored. Within days, patterns started emerging, dozens of black and brown students expelled or suspended under shady circumstances. Anonymous reports of verbal abuse. A whistleblower teacher finally came forward, sending a voice memo. She hated black kids who were smarter than her. Said they were arrogant and needed to be put in their place. Jalen uploaded it to the Never Be Anything campaign page. Within hours it went viral. The tide started to turn again. But just as justice felt within reach, another storm hit. One of Jalen's business partners, Ava Tran, a Vietnamese-American tech founder who co-developed the biometric tech in Stride Tech sneakers, called in a panic. "Jalen," she said breathlessly, "I just got word the Department of Commerce is auditing Stride Tech. Today. Unannounced. I'm being told they suspect patent fraud." "What?" he barked. "We own all our patents." "Exactly. But someone's filed a complaint. Anonymous. They're saying we stole the biometric code from a now-defunct startup. And guess who they're claiming wrote the original software?" "Gregory Whitmore's grandson," Kennedy said from across the room, already pulling up the bogus documents. It was a setup. A massive one. An attempt to destroy Jalen's legacy from every angle, personal, professional, reputational. But Jalen didn't back down. He stared at the phony patent documents. "Get Ava. Get the patent lawyers. Get our IT team. We're going to war." Over the next 48 hours, Jalen's team worked non-stop. They found that the so-called original biometric software the Whitmores claimed predated Stride Tech had a timestamp that didn't match internal server records. They traced metadata, developer commits, code repositories, everything. Turns out, the entire thing had been backdated using a private network tied to a disgraced tech incubator Gregory had funded years ago. Jalen's lawyers drafted a counterclaim and sent it to the Department of Commerce. Then came the final blow. Kennedy discovered a hidden fund transfer, Gregory Whitmore wiring $250,000 to a PR firm known for digital smear campaigns, 3 days before the leak of Jalen's court file and the false patent claim. They had the receipt. Jalen now had proof of sabotage, tampering, and a coordinated media attack. He called his lawyer. "We're suing them all." The next morning, Jalen scheduled a national press conference. In a dark blue suit, standing in front of hundreds of journalists, Jalen laid out the full story. The threats, the surveillance, the unsealed juvenile record, the phony patent claim, the money trail, the audio recordings. Then he looked directly into the camera. "This isn't just about me," he said. "This is about every black boy who was ever told to stay in their place. Every student who had their future stolen by someone in power. I built something beautiful out of what they tried to break. But now I'm breaking the system that let them get away with it." The world watched. Support poured in. Celebrities, athletes, activists. Ava Tran filed criminal charges against the tech incubator. Miss Tasha was moved under private security. Gregory Whitmore and Ms. Whitmore were both served legal summons the very next day. Everything seemed to be coming together. But then, something happened. Jalen got a call. Not from Kennedy. Not from Ava. But from Detective Ronald Green, a sharp, level-headed black officer in Newark PD who had helped him in the past. "Jalen," he said. "We need to talk. In person. It's about your father." Jalen blinked. "My what?" "Your father. I know you believed he disappeared. But we've reopened a case, and your name's come up. You might want to sit down for this." Jalen's stomach turned. "My father? But he's been gone since I was 2. I barely remember his face." Green was silent on the other end for a long moment. Then you need to prepare yourself. Because your past, it's not what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Jalen's fight for justice has awakened enemies he never knew existed. But now a deeper truth is rising. A family secret buried for decades. And the man who abandoned him may not have left at all. The sun had barely begun to rise over Newark when Jalen Brooks stepped into the dimly lit conference room of a private law enforcement facility just outside the city limits. His mind was still buzzing with the words from Detective Ronald Green, "It's about your father." He hadn't spoken that name in years. Not out loud. Not even to his closest friends. His father had been a ghost in his life, a mystery wrapped in silence, abandonment, and unanswered questions. Miss Tasha never spoke of him except once, when Jalen was 12 and crying after school because another kid said he'd never make it without a dad. That night, his mother had wiped his tears and said, "You don't need him. You've got me. You've got you." And that was the end of it. Now here he was, billionaire tech mogul, community leader, the face of justice and redemption, and suddenly, his past was reaching for him again. Detective Green sat at the head of the table, flanked by a younger officer holding a file. "We've been reviewing cold case records, corruption investigations from the 90s, Green said. "And your father's name, Jerome Brooks, came up. Not as a suspect, but as someone who was disappeared." Jalen leaned forward slowly. "Disappeared?" "According to sealed records, Jerome was a whistleblower," Green continued. "He was working maintenance at a municipal building. Overheard some top-level city officials, judges, prosecutors, talking about framing young Black teens for crimes they didn't commit. Systematic expulsion from school. Juvenile convictions. One name kept popping up in those transcripts. Gregory Whitmore." Jalen's heart skipped. Green opened the file. Jerome tried to report it. Next thing anyone knew, he was gone. No death certificate. No police report. Just vanished. "We believe he was silenced." Jalen felt his breath catch. "Wait, you're saying my father might have tried to expose the same system I'm fighting now?" Green nodded. "And we think Ms. Whitmore's brother, Gregory, was involved in the cover-up. Jerome Brooks was more than just your father. He may have been the first person to stand against them." Jalen stood, hands trembling. "Why now? Why is this coming out now?" "Because someone leaked documents. From the same private server Gregory used to sabotage you. Anonymous source. Looks like someone wants the truth out." Jalen stared at the file in Green's hands, a swirl of confusion, rage, and clarity hitting him all at once. "Do you have a photo?" Green slid a yellowed picture across the table. There he was. Jerome Brooks. Tall. Same jawline. Same fire in the eyes. And behind him, a child. A toddler no older than 2. Sitting on his shoulders. Jalen. His throat tightened. "My father wasn't running from me. He was protecting me." Green nodded solemnly. "And now it's your turn to finish what he started." That night, Jalen returned to the Brooks Legacy Foundation in silence. The lights of the city stretched far below him, a map of wounds and triumphs. Kennedy met him at the top floor with 2 cups of hot tea, no questions asked. He finally spoke. "They didn't just try to break me. They broke my father. Silenced him." Kennedy sat across from him, calm but firm. "Then we raise our voices louder." Jalen stood and walked to the glass wall overlooking the city. "Everything makes sense now. Ms. Whitmore. Her brother. The way she targeted me in school. She was part of the system my father tried to expose." Kennedy's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. "The DOJ just opened an inquiry into Gregory Whitmore's judicial history. They want to see your evidence." Jalen turned slowly. "It's time we go public, with everything." The next morning, Jalen held a televised press conference. He told the world about his father. The system that buried him. The web of power that stretched from a classroom in Newark to courtrooms and corporate boardrooms. He revealed the juvenile court file that was never supposed to exist. The sealed whistleblower records. The audio tapes. The falsified patent claims. The threats. The money trail. And then he dropped the final bombshell. "I have every intention," he said, voice like thunder, "of suing Gregory Whitmore, his firm, and every public official complicit in this corruption under the RICO Act. This is organized crime. Plain and simple." The media exploded. Every major network ran the story. Former students of Ms. Whitmore continued to speak out. One revealed that she manipulated grades to hold back black students from applying to gifted programs. Another admitted she was discouraged from applying to Ivy League schools because Ms. Whitmore said, "Your kind never lasts at places like that." Protesters gathered outside Everdale Elementary. Parents demanded change. Teachers who had once stayed silent came forward. The tide had fully turned. Meanwhile, Ava Tran publicly released the original timestamps and developer logs for StrideTech software, clearing their name and proving the Whitmore patent fraud case was built on lies. Gregory Whitmore's law license was suspended. Ms. Whitmore herself went on national TV, trying to play the victim again. But when Jalen released a clip from a 1997 staff meeting, audio of her laughing about a little black boy who thinks he's Einstein, any remaining sympathy disappeared. She was finished. But then, something unexpected happened. Late one night, as Jalen reviewed final documentation for the RICO filing, Kennedy rushed into his office with a look he had never seen before: panic. "You need to see this," she said, turning on the TV. A breaking news report filled the screen. Explosion at Newark storage facility connected to Jalen Brooks' case. 1 dead, files destroyed. Jalen sat up. "What?" "The facility housed old court records," Kennedy said breathlessly. "The original whistleblower tapes. Your father's testimony. The server backups. All gone." Jalen stared at the screen in horror. Then another alert flashed. "Breaking. Anonymous whistleblower identified in leaked DOJ email chain." And underneath it, name, Tasha Brooks. Jalen's mouth fell open. No. "She's not safe," Kennedy said, grabbing her phone. "We have to move now." Jalen ran toward the elevator, heart pounding. His mother, the woman who raised him, protected him, gave up everything, was the last living person tied to Jerome Brooks's secret efforts. If Gregory Whitmore and his allies couldn't destroy the documents, they'd go after the only person left who remembered: Miss Tasha. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift black voices and expose hidden truths. The past is on fire. The present is under attack. And if Jalen can't protect the one person who gave him life, he could lose everything. The black SUV tore through the streets of Newark, slicing through traffic like a blade. In the back seat, Jalen Brooks gripped his phone in one hand and prayed silently with the other. His mother, Miss Tasha, had been exposed as the whistleblower, the one who had protected his father's secret all these years. Now the entire world knew. And so did the people who wanted that secret buried. Forever. Next to him, Kennedy was on the phone with the private security team. "We need confirmation of her location. If she's not at the condo, pull the last footage from the surveillance system. I want drones in the air and both exits locked down. She does not go missing." They had tried to silence Jerome Brooks 30 years ago. Now they were trying to silence his son, his legacy, his wife, Miss Tasha. As the SUV skidded into the private residential complex, 2 black sedans were already parked at the entrance. Jalen's heart stopped. He jumped out before the car fully halted, sprinting through the lobby. Ma, are you here?" He ran through the hallway, up the stairs, past 2 startled guards. The door to her penthouse safe room stood wide open. Empty. His breath caught in his throat. Kennedy arrived behind him, pale. "Jalen." But then her phone buzzed. A text. "She's safe. We moved her 30 minutes ago. Thought you were already notified." Jamal, head of security. Relief slammed through Jalen like a tidal wave. He exhaled, staggered, knees weak. "Thank God." Kennedy grabbed his shoulder. "But this isn't over." He nodded. "We fight harder." That same night, a storm hit Newark. Rain crashed against the streets as if heaven itself was purging the city's sins. Jalen held a live stream, raw, unedited, real. Over 15 million people tuned in within the first hour. He told it all. About Ms. Whitmore's classroom. The abuse. The threats. The lies. About her brother, Gregory Whitmore. His private network of corruption, his manipulation of courts, patents, media narratives. About Jerome Brooks, his father, a maintenance man turned whistleblower who died protecting the truth. And about the woman who carried that truth like a shield for 30 years. Miss Tasha. "She raised me to never give up," Jalen said, staring directly into the camera. Even when the world tried to erase me. They told me I'd never be anything. They tried to kill my father. They tried to break my spirit. But here I am. Standing. Fighting. And I'm not going anywhere. The internet lit up. Hashtag I am Jalen trended worldwide. Hashtag Protect Miss Tasha became a movement. Protests broke out in cities across the country, demanding justice, accountability, truth. And the next day it came. The Department of Justice arrested Gregory Whitmore on federal charges: RICO violations, perjury, judicial tampering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and obstruction of justice. News outlets aired footage of him being led away in handcuffs, his arrogant smirk replaced by fear. Ms. Whitmore was fired. Her teaching license revoked. But it didn't stop there. Dozens of other corrupt educators across the country were exposed as investigations spread. Jalen's Never Be Anything initiative tripled in size overnight. He opened 3 new innovation centers for inner-city students, one named after his father, one after Miss Tasha, and the third after the young black kids who are still being underestimated today. But Jalen wasn't finished yet. A week later, in a sunlit auditorium at Everdale Elementary, his old school, Jalen stood on stage during the school's rededication ceremony. The auditorium had been renamed the Jerome Brooks Freedom Hall. Miss Tasha sat front row in tears, holding her son's hand. Jalen walked to the mic, smiled softly, and looked out at a crowd of teachers, students, parents, and reporters. "I was told I'd never be anything," he said, "by the very people who were supposed to nurture my potential. But I became someone they could never control. Not with fear. Not with lies. Not with violence." He paused, eyes scanning the audience. "They said I'd never be anything. But now, I'm something. I'm someone. And I'm not just here for me. I'm here for every little black child who ever sat in a desk too small for their dreams." The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. And Jalen looked down at Miss Tasha. She mouthed the words, "I'm proud of you, baby." He smiled, tears brimming. For the first time in his life he felt complete. 6 months later, Ms. Whitmore was interviewed on a Fringe podcast, trying to twist the story one more time. She called Jalen manipulative. Called his campaign reverse racism. But nobody listened. She had lost. And Jalen? He didn't respond. He didn't have to. Because he was too busy building futures, mentoring kids, creating scholarships, changing laws, reshaping systems. He had become what they said he never would. And more. Never let someone else's limitations define your potential. There will always be people who try to write your story for you. People who project their fear, their bias, their hate onto your journey. But when you know your worth, when you hold on to your truth, when you fight for your future with everything inside you, no force, no lie, no system can stop you. Jalen was just a kid they tried to break. But he grew into a man they could never silence. You are more than what they say. You are what you choose to become. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift black voices and expose hidden truths.